welcome to the Sportsman. I want to start, we'll get to the sports side of your career in just a couple of minutes. Let's talk about the music first though, because that's why we're here. Just tell us a little bit about Fozzy and how they started.
Most generic question, try again. It's terrible. I hate when people ask that after that. Can I give you a 17-year history of the band in 1 minute, you know?
It's a fair shout. I guess the question that I want to sort of lead into is, if you're putting so much time into learning how to be a band and learning your instruments and your time, and yet you're putting so much time into the wrestling career as well and everything else that you do, because I know you do other things as well, how do you kind of manage your time to
well, you don't do both at the same time. And I've been playing in bands since I was 13, so I always wanted to be in a band and I wanted to be a wrestler, so that's kind of what I devoted my time to doing. But you can't do them both at the same time, and that's why, you know, my days of being a full-time wrestler are gone, and have been for about the last 7 years or so. And that's kind of the rise of Fozzy over that time frame. You know, so it's been great. I mean, right now we have a song in the top 10 in America called Judas, 10 million views on YouTube, etc., etc. And, you know, this is, I think, probably our best tour we've ever had in the UK as a result. So it's a lot of hard work we've put in over the years. It's all kind of paying off now.
How does it compare being on the road with the band as it does to with the wrestlers? Because I know bands can be pretty hectic.
Well, it's both, right? But there's pros and cons. I mean, with the band, and you see we travel on this bus. It's a beautiful bus, and everyone's kind of hanging around with a lot of camaraderie. With WWE, I just travel on my own, you know, and you're kind of in charge of yourself. There's a tour manager to tell you where you have to be and what you got to do. In WWE, you're kind of all on your own time. You're renting your own cars, renting your own hotels, but you're on your own time. So a lot of times, like, the bus will leave right after the show, where maybe I would want to stay after the show. In wrestling, I can do that because I make my own schedule as long as I'm there on time. For you know, over here, you can't do that as much. I mean, I could always just go rent a car or something, but like I said, it's pros and cons to both. But I mean, it's nothing to complain about when you're. This bus is beautiful. It's probably the best bus we've ever had. We've had a lot of shitty buses too.
It's like a hotel.
Yeah. So, like, for example, today, the good old live rooms here. It's a great venue, great people, great fans. But you go inside and it smells like a dirty sock that's been soaked in beer, and I'd rather just hang out here for the day than in there. So, but there's other buses that we've had that smell like a dirty sweat sock dipped in, you know, BO. And you'd rather hang out in there than in here. But for something like this, there's no complaints about being on the bus all day.
I can imagine that you get a lot of wrestling questions when you're on the road and you're doing your band things.
You do, but I mean, it's not as much now. I mean, we've been doing this long enough where there's distinct Fozzy fans that don't even know much about wrestling. There's wrestling fans that still come but turn into Fozzy fans, and there's some that like both. So whatever it takes.
I guess the rest of the band were really understanding, knowing that you've got this big name in the wrestling world, that they're going to have to hear you talk about that from time to time.
Well, I mean, you'd be crazy not to. You know, you don't deny that, or I'm sure when, you know, Jared Leto goes on tour with 30 Seconds to Mars and someone asks him about the Dallas, you know, Buyers Club, whatever that movie did that we won an Oscar for, I'm sure he's not going to say, shut up, you know, maybe he does, I don't know. I know Billy Bob Thornton, when he does band interviews, only talks about his band, but to me that's counterproductive, because if you want to talk to Chris Jericho, there's a lot of different things that I do. And it's not insulting if you want to ask about Fozzy, if it's a wrestling thing, or my book, if it's a Fozzy thing, or it all comes from the same place. So I think you'd be crazy to kind of cut off your arm and not talk about one huge portion of your career and what got you to this stature in the first place.
You do a podcast as well. Just give us a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest podcasts in the world, you know, and that's something as well that, you know, I've been doing for 4 years now. We got our 400th episode this week, Gene Simmons. So, you know, once again, it's a combination of wrestling, music, paranormal, porn stars, comedians, whatever I find interesting, I'll have on my show, you know, and I'm proud of Talk is Jericho, because it's become one of the biggest podcasts in the world of any genre, not just for sports or wrestling or music, but, you know, for anything. So, you know, and that's a little bit easier to do because you can do that. You know, I did a show yesterday on my day off. I'll do a show probably next week on my day off. You have lots of time to kill, and there's a lot of interesting people around here, and it's a perfect way to kind of fill up some of that time.
Do you have any time for anything outside of work when you're not in the band and you're not wrestling? And
when I'm at home, I'm just hanging out with my kids. You know, that's I don't have a lot of friends in Tampa, not in a bad way, but I just want to hang out with my family. So that's kind of the balance. You know, this tour will end up being a month at the end of it. And that's a long time. It's a little bit too long. It's longer than we usually go, but there's just a couple circumstances that led to that. But when I'm at home, it'll just be with them. So, and that's, like I said, that's necessary.
Do you have, knowing the career path you've taken, do you have ambitions or a set goal or target, if you like, for the band? Because it's the band that we're here for tonight. So if you say, right, at some point in our career, the goal is to play a slot at Glastonbury or to play...
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's if you're not in this band or in a band to be, you know, biggest band in the world and play stadiums, then either you're lying or you're probably not going to make it out of the club. So our goal is the same as it's always been, which is just to continue to grow. You know, and right before this record, we started working on it, the Judas record. I was like, you know, I don't want to just be at the same level. We need to take some chances, and we did. We took some risks. We brought in an outside producer to work with and write songs with, and now suddenly we have a top 10 hit that's probably going to be top 5 before it's all said and done. You know, number 1 on Spotify, number 1 on iTunes in 8 different countries, including England. So that's, to me, is like, wow, you know, we've grown and our attendance has grown, you know, and I mean, we're still playing the live rooms, but last time we were here, I think there's 300 people. Tonight there'll be 500 people, and you can see the build and the buzz, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, and then it's the business too, and you can start to see the money grow, and we know it's our chance to get to the next level and really stay there.
Are there any comparisons to going up through the ranks as a wrestler as to growing up?
Well, there is too, and I always laugh too when people say, like, how is it for you playing a show like tonight and you're wrestling in front of 50,000 people with the WWE? Well, it's not like that every night, the WWE. And we played Download this year in front of 50,000 people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, WrestleMania was 100,000 people in Dallas, but there's also shows where you show up there in, you know, freaking Decatur, Indiana, and it's an 8,000 seat arena and there's 1,000 people. That happens too. So it's not always, you know, WrestleMania when you're wrestling, and it's not always Download when you're playing a show, but the attitude is the same. You still go out there and act like it is. You know, every show for us is Madison Square Garden, and we have a reputation of being a great live band because of it. And it's the same thing with WWE. I mean, no matter what night it is, you put on your best performance and, you know, let the people know that didn't show up that they missed out on something, and that will usually bring them back the next time.
There is a lot of high energy in your performances. I've noticed this. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I hope you don't mind.
That's impossible.
We put a question out on Facebook earlier today on the Sportsman, and we said, basically, do my job for me. If you could ask Chris Jericho one question, what would it be? Do you want to hear a couple of them? Can I fire some of them over to you?
Please.
So, one question is, AJ Rochester has asked, who is the stupidest idiot in the WWE?
I don't know, man. It's funny because, like, when I'm there, you're 100% into it, you know, and you can say, like, like last year was such a great year for me, and, you know, Mick Foley was the commissioner and he was a stupid idiot, but like now it seems like another life. You know what I mean? And it's like it's hard to kind of fit into that role. Like, who's a stupid idiot? I'm like, my answer last year when I'm in that groove I'd probably give you 10, but right now they're all I like everybody. They're all cool. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I mean it's funny, and people sometimes have a problem with that. And even when I switched back to but when I came back to Fozzy in May and I was finishing up with the WWE, it was weird to get back into Fozzy mode. Yeah. You know, and then when you go back to WWE, it's weird to go back to WWE mode. As a matter of fact, this summer I did just a one-off for SmackDown because they were filming what do they call it? Southpaw Regional Wrestling, which was a kind of a parody of old school wrestling. I had so much fun doing it. I flew to SmackDown just to do that. And when I was there, like, do you want to be on the show tonight? So I was like, okay, I'll do that. But it was hard to get in the mindset. You know what I mean? Because you can't. It's not just. There's two separate worlds. Yeah. And just switching. You know, it's like getting into an ice cold lake. You get into it. It's cold at first, and then you're like, okay, this isn't bad. and then you get out and go right into a hot shower, and then it's like, oh, this is so hot, and then you get used to that, and then jump back into the cold lake, and it's like, that's kind of what it's like. It's very shocking at first, and then you slowly get into it, and then it's hard to pull yourself out of it to jump back into that cold water, but that's kind of what it's like.
I can imagine you rely on your colleagues and teammates, so to speak, of that camaraderie to get you into that frame.
You kind of do, but it has to be in your head, though. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, especially for me, because I know who I am as a performer. I know who I am as a singer. I know who I am on stage, because there's a character you play on stage. There's a character you play in the ring. I mean, people pay to see larger than life, you know, superstars, rock stars, or, you know, whatever you would call a great wrestler, like the superstars, what they say. So,
I think wrestlers come across as rock stars.
Some of them do.
Jim Richard Glover says, and I think he sounds like a bit of a big Y2J fan here. He says, nice. How do you sleep? He actually used the word troglodyte. I remember using it. I can't say that I knew what it meant.
Yeah.
How do you sleep knowing a whole generation suffer from back problems as a result of repeated wars with Jericho from their older brother? Name dropped.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, don't try this at home, right? Yeah. People say, I put that on my brother. I say, well, did it work for you? It never works for me.
No, I think the warnings are there, and you should try. Someone's put, have you ever actually broke down a wall?
I've torn down some walls, just actually in Japan this past summer. Had a few too many drinks. I tried to pull a vase off the wall, but it was attached to the desk that was also attached to the wall, and pulled the whole thing down. I was like, eesh. And then, of course, I went back to my room, and the next day I got presented with a nice bill. So I bought that wall.
Nice. Do you follow any other sports? Do you follow maybe a bit of boxing?
No, I'm the worst athlete who's actually an athlete. I can't throw a ball, I can't shoot a hockey puck, I'm shits at all that. And I'm the worst sports fan. I don't care anything about any sports, with the exception of the Winnipeg Jets hockey team in the NHL, because I'm from Winnipeg. But even that, I don't follow it super closely. If they made it to the playoffs, I would follow it. But yeah, I'm much more of a rock and roll guy, man.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. That's always been my thing. It's like even wrestling, I don't really know much about the history or the trivia, but I can go talk about music for hours and hours and hours and hours. I've always been like that.
I'd love to speak about music for hours and hours.
Yeah.
Who in the Wrestling Federation or in the WWE, who else is a music man? Who else has a good taste in music?
Well, I mean, there's certain people that are super into music, but I mean, Dolph Ziggler and Bubba Dudley are really into. We had like a Motley Crue text chain, group text, but yeah, there's not a lot of people that are as obsessed as I am. And Miz is a pretty big music fan. He knows a lot, appreciates music a lot. Roman Reigns does too, but not my type of music. More, he likes kind of country and a little bit of rock. And Braun Strowman's like that. Bray Wyatt's in that. There's guys that kind of like this Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard type of stuff.
Who's got the worst taste?
There's just so many people that just like the hardcore rap or the EDM type stuff, and I just don't dig that music. So, who was playing music that was really bothering me? I can't remember if it was like maybe Naomi or something like that. I was like, you can't listen to that around me. Please turn it off.
Who's when one of the questions that we put forward, and there's some people trying to guess and trying to preempt, but I said we'll go to the source. People are trying to ask who the best dressed, who has the best haircut, who's, and I think the question would be who's the most likely to keep you waiting, getting ready. If you're going to a rock well, to any concert, or you want to go on a night out, and someone's got to get ready, do their hair a bit more. And
in the band,
yeah.
Well, Rich has super long hair, so it takes him forever to have a shower because he's got to comb it out and stuff. And he doesn't take one every day he doesn't wash his hair every day. But if he goes in the shower, you know, okay, well, there's an hour and a half gone right there. But it used to be me, but I'm growing my hair out a bit, so you don't have to worry about doing the little hair shit and all that stuff. But we're all pretty low maintenance guys. We're all pros, you know what I mean? All the guys in the band have 20 years experience being on the road and being in a band, so you're pretty cognizant of each other and respectful of each other's habits, good and bad.
Just let me, I know we've not got loads of time, you're a busy man, but I just want to ask you, just on the wrestling career, for the Sportsman of course, is if I was to say to you, what's your proudest moment in the WWE or in the wrestling world? What would be your one moment? You look back and you tell your kids and you say, that was the moment.
Well, I mean, to be honest, and this is not a cop-out, it's just the fact that I got to tour the world doing what I always wanted to do. You know, not just in wrestling, but in music as well. But to go around the world, and you know, the old cliches, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that really is, to me, my proudest accomplishment. Like, how did a 19-year-old kid in 1990, when there was no internet, no... You know, how the hell do you get into wrestling? You know, I don't know how to do it. Wrote a letter, and you know what I mean, that sort of thing. So that to me is pretty cool. I'm very proud of that, and that's something I think I would like to instill into my kids and any kid. Is, you know, if you have a dream, no matter how outlandish or fantastic or out in space it may seem, you can do it. You know, if you have the talent for it, and if you work hard enough for it, you can do it. So that's probably the biggest advice. That's also the thing I'm most proud of. What
hurts more, a rock bottom or a Stone Cold Stunner?
Oh, rock bottom by far. Stone Cold Stunner's nothing.
You can take a stunner.
Well, see, you just bend over and fall back. But the rock bottom, you actually have to land on your back. Stunner, you just take a bow basically. So I took a summer's worth of stunners, and the worst part of that was just having beer dumped on you afterwards. So,
if I could give you one dream matchup now, so to speak, and I'm going to be Vince McMahon, and I'm going to say, Chris, I give you any fight right now.
I had a dream once that Vince booked me in a match against the Loch Ness Monster, and the finish was I had to go into his mouth, and I didn't trust that he was going to not eat me. I was super scared, and it was, you got to do it. So there you go, Loch Ness Monster.
Chris, I don't even know how I can carry on from that, so I'm not going to.
On that note,
is that a bombshell? Is that an exclusive? Can I claim that as an exclusive?
I think it's exclusive.
Chris Jericho.
And if I've told the story before, then just ignore it. It's exclusive.
Chris Jericho, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.